Hey everyone, SpencerFan937 here, and this is my Thomas Winter Railway layout. It's brand new for Season 3 of my series, Northwestern Chronicles, and I just built it not too long ago, and here it is. I plan to use this layout for most, if not all, of Season 3, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So usually we start where Thomas is, and he's currently at Knapford Station, but I figured we should start at Ellsbridge Station instead. So if you look at Ellsbridge Station, you could see it's just Stanley pulling the aquarium cars by Ellsbridge Station. He's passing Charles Hat, the son of Sir Topham Hatt. If you keep going forward, you come across Butch there, and you eventually get to this turntable. Now this turntable is sort of like what I think is the yard to some extent. You have Daisy, Diesel, and Mike, and so they're all by the turntable. If you keep going on this straight line, you eventually go here. But if you go here, you'll eventually pass some trees and come to this bridge. And both of these lines converge on this bridge if you pass Bulgy. And you eventually come across these two people. And you may recognize the guy on the left. If you watch my series, that's the Duke of Boxford. And this lady here is what I think is the Duchess of Boxford. So they're currently surveying Sodor. Behind them, if you go on this line, there's this bridge with Henry on it. And if you keep going down, you will eventually come across the Sodor engine wash. And right outside the engine wash is Stephen, which is the Earl's private engine. And this is the Earl's castle. There he is, looking over. If you go along here, you come across this viaduct with Oliver on it. And he comes across this bridge. If you go down the bridge, you come across this signal here, the signal box, and you pass Terrence, and you eventually arrive at Knapford Station. Here we have Thomas, who's pulling Annie and Clarabelle, Gordon, who's pulling the Express, Toby with the Timoth milk tanker, and James with coaches of his own. And of course, here is Sir Topham Hatt, the man himself. So that's my Knapford Station. And if you go down on Thomas's line, you eventually come across another yard, or what I think the yard is. You have Edward and Whiff pulling some trucks, and there's this crane here, which I've used in the past. If you keep going on these three lines here, you come across Donald and Douglas. Donald's on the right, and Douglas is on the left there. They're under the bridge. If you keep going on Douglas's line, you come across Hero, who's sitting at the turntable, and George over there. See? And at the turntable, you have Molly, Percy, Harvey, Bill, Ben, and as well as Sir Topham Hatt's secretary. And there's Emily. So if you go past the sheds, you'll eventually come across Neville there, who's pulling the garbage train. If we come back to the sheds and we go back on Hero's line and we go back to Donald, we come past these fire trucks. I think this is the, I think it's called the water tanker. Yeah, the water tanker, and this is the fire engine, or the hook and ladder. You come across the Marin Archstone Bridge, and then you see the Sodor Airfield with Harold. If you keep going down the line, you come across Billy, who's pulling the milk train, or the Sodor dairy cars. There's Farmer Cole. There's also Trevor there. If you go by Gordon's Hill, you could see Spencer pulling the Duke and Duchess's coach. And if we go under the bridge there, we come across the quarry, or the construction site. We have Mavis along with Byron. So, and the manager of the construction site, and they're all working pretty hard. If you go down the line here, you just come back to Knapford Station. But if you go back on this point here, you see Duck pulling some trucks of his own past the Wellsworth Crossing. And I forgot to mention, over here is Birdie. If you keep going past the construction site, you come across Jack and Alfie, working very hard. And then because it's still winter on the island of Sodor, you have this snow tunnel thing. Spins like that. Where Spencer is, you come across this viaduct here, a small viaduct, and on the other side is Marin Station, where you have Rusty pulling Rocky. Both of these lines converge upon Bretnum Docks. So you obviously have Salty, who's like essentially the manager of the docks. You also have Murdoch pulling some cargo cars ready to be loaded up. You also, of course, have Lori, who works the docks. And, of course, Richard Topham Hatt, who's the son of Sir Topham Hatt, who is currently managing the docks there. See? You also have Cranky and Bulstrode. And where Bulstrode is, I like to imagine this section here is sort of like my pier, so all the boats dock here, and then we leave through there. So Bulstrode's ready to drop off some packages, and Cranky is ready to load them up. And here's another crane. So if you go past here on Murdoch's line, you eventually end up back at Ellsbridge Station with Stanley and Charles Hatt. If you move along this switch, though, you eventually get to Gordon's Hill. And obviously you already went over Spencer. And if you keep going down, you arrive at Duck's Line, and you just get back to Netford Station. If you keep going here, behind Stanley, there's this little siding here that just kind of leads into nowhere. And if you keep going past behind Stanley, you eventually come across the Sodor Diesel Works. And this suspicious figure here who works at the Diesel Works. And of course you have Dennis pushing some tankers. And D261, I just wanted an engine here. He's not actually on Sodor. If you watch my series, you know he was exiled after he caused some trouble, but I just wanted to put an engine here. So yeah, that's essentially the entire layout. Like I said, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and I'm looking forward to using it throughout my series. So, thank you all for watching very much, and stay tuned.